Hello, my name is Gabrielle Damian, and this presentation is on the infrastructure of water in California, a crisis in adequate funding. So California's infrastructure is a very delicate, multifaceted system. All aspects of infrastructure affect the others and cannot work efficiently independent of one another. For example, California's water infrastructure deals with sewage, electricity, and transportation besides just water. Um, so there are a few aspects that I'm going to talk about today, and the first one is California ports. So ports handle all of the imports and exports of goods in and out of the country. California ports are responsible for handling over 30% of the nation's exports and around 40% of all the cargo that comes into the United States. So California is a major player in um, what comes in and leaves the United States, rather than other states that border an ocean like New York or Florida or Washington, Oregon, things like that. Um, and without these exports operating at an efficient volume, the United States would not be receiving or delivering almost half of the goods that keep our nationwide economy afloat. So this is very, very, very important for the not only the way that the state can function, but how the whole country can function. Here's some of the problems with ports. It doesn't have the best monitoring system. We don't exactly know what's leaving and entering the country. And ultimately, it needs to have an adequate amount of funding in order to stay afloat and keep operating on a normal day-to-day basis. And ports are not getting that funding that they need. So a solution would be to allocate more money to keep these ports operating efficiently, and hire more Californians to effectively monitor imports and exports. This way we know exactly what's entering and leaving the country, um, and with an adequate amount of money to do this, we won't have any issues of illegal products coming in and out of the country or illegal people coming in and out as well. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is a lack of clean water. It's no secret that Californians do not have clean water. According to an article in the New York Times, nearly 1 million Californians are exposed to unsafe drinking water. That is a staggering number, and it should not be 1 million people. Interestingly enough, the epicenter of the water crisis is located in the San Joaquin Valley, which is a major farming area. A large amount of the food and crops that are grown in the San Joaquin Valley are used all over the country, not just in California. So the fact that there isn't enough water in this one area is very, very bad. There's an estimated 3,000 water systems in California as a whole as of 2018, and 269 of them are not following water standards. And I believe it's about 140 of them are located in the San Joaquin Valley. So the fact that even this farming land is not getting enough water, we're not getting the right amount of crops in the right amount of time to be grown in order to supply the whole state, let alone the whole country. Water systems are not following guidelines, and they have extremely high rates of nitrate contamination, which has been known to cause birth defects and some cancers. So that's really, really bad that we're drinking water with nitrates. Some have even found arsenic in the water, which is really bad. We've had some solutions, but they aren't really that effective. All the water that Californians pay for to flow through their house with sinks, toilets, showers, we can't drink it because it's not clean. So we're paying for water that we can barely use, which sucks. Californians also rely heavily on importing drinking water from out of state via bottled water or water jugs, water towers, things like that. And that's money that can be distributed to something else if we're not spending so much on importing drinking water. So some positive solutions that maybe will make a difference for the positive. Bringing awareness to water conservation, shorter showers, less use of sink water, things like this will help all of the water in California be allocated to where it needs to go, like in the San Joaquin Valley. We can install more effective filtration systems to reduce the amount of water imported from other states. Make sure that the filtration systems are up to code. so that they're effectively filtering our water so that we can have clean water in the state and not have to get it from out of state. One fun fact I found was for every $1 billion invested in clean water infrastructure, we create between 10,000 and 15,000 jobs. This is great because we're not only getting cleaner water, but it will be creating so many jobs. While that dollar amount is very staggering because it's very high, I believe that that's really what we need to do. We need to spend the money in order to have clean water. And the restructuring of the aging water systems will prove beneficial as it will reduce leaks because there's leaks everywhere within our piping system. And it will rid of any known chemicals infecting the water. So this is so important that we invest the money that we need to in order to fix the water systems so that our overall water infrastructure as it relates to clean water will be overall improved. Dams. So not only do California dams prevent overflowing of water from storms or runoff, like how we all know, but it provides 70% of the state's water supply. And it also generates a large amount of energy. It's estimated that around 13.47% of Californians' power is generated from dams with hydroelectricity. Here's a problem with dams, though. In recent examinations of the state's infrastructure, it is estimated that there are over 800 dams that could pose a threat to the infrastructure of the state. That means that 800 dams are not up to code out of the 1,400 that we have in the state. That's a large majority. And should a natural disaster strike, like a heavy rainstorm or an earthquake or something, there's no emergency fail-safes in these 800 dams, and that can lead to mass destruction around the entire state. All that water can demolish towns and cities. We won't have as much energy from the hydroelectricity that the dams create, and this is a major problem. So the solution. The state needs to allocate money to create reliable emergency dam breakage systems to prevent any major threats to our infrastructure. The state should also set aside some money to help with the upkeep of dams in the most cost-effective way that promotes longevity. If after fixing these dams we have money set aside for little fixes, then we won't have to do big major fixes over time. This can also help create more jobs for Californians. There's so many areas that we can create more jobs if we add more funding to certain infrastructure problems. Pollution. Of course, we all know about pollution. Years and years of dumping trash and oil and waste has destroyed the cleanliness of our oceans. The slow destruction of our oceans has caused the oceanic ecosystem to shatter and ultimately can completely restructure our food web. The pollution has ultimately been broken down into two main categories, however, stormwater and wastewater. Wastewater is the water that comes from people's homes and they use toilets, sinks, or other systems that require piping or drainage systems. And stormwater is the water that collects after a heavy rain, collecting trash, mud, chemicals, and everything else that goes down the storm drains and can lead into the ocean. The Environmental Protection Agency has estimated that the federal government would need to dedicate $298 billion over 20 years just to help restructure the sewage infrastructure of the country in order to stop and possibly reverse the issues of pollution. This restructure would not only benefit sewage infrastructure, but also water infrastructure as they're closely connected. If we refix these sewage systems, then we can have more access to the waterfront properties and water, and use the ocean as a positive for our infrastructure. Pollution halts attraction of tourists to beaches and thus tanks businesses. So if the beaches are polluted, then no one's going to want to go to the beach. And if no one wants to go to the beach, then all those beachside properties and beachside businesses all will go out of business because there's simply no one around that wants to be over in that toxic area. Because California is on the coast, a large amount of our businesses are located on the coast. And as a result, This is going to hurt a lot of businesses if we do not help the pollution. Not even to mention the environmental impact. This is just the economic impact. So our solution, we need to educate Californians about the importance of having a clean state and promote cleaner behaviors, like reducing, reusing, and recycling. We need to allocate money to cleaning up beaches and restructuring the sewage system so that we don't have all this stuff going into the ocean and destroying the ecosystem. Agencies and government departments like the California Environment Protection Agency and the California Department of Toxic Substances Control, respectively, should receive more funding in order to make positive changes. We should also maybe create some more government agencies or departments that are dedicated specifically to helping ocean preservation. So, action plan. As a state, California cannot be afraid to spend money to improve water infrastructure. There was a motion that tried to be passed in 2018 to dedicate $9 billion to dams being restructured and rebuilt, and it did not pass because a lot of times Californians are very worried by a high number like 9 billion being dedicated to one thing. However, while it does cost them money to fix dams and install new filtration systems, it's ultimately going to cost even more money to rebuild should a natural disaster strike and destroy what's already in place. So it's better for us to be proactive and fix the problems that we have now rather than wait for it to get bad and have dams completely flood Los Angeles or completely flood San Francisco. That would be a much more costly thing to handle than just fix the dams now and fix the filtration systems now so that we don't have to deal with some sort of crisis in the future. And ultimately, that would affect every single aspect of our infrastructure. It can destroy freeways, it can destroy airports, it can destroy electrical systems, sewage systems. It can destroy everything if we don't do something in order to fail-safe our dams and our filtration systems. And here is my works cited, and thank you so much.